Have you ever had that eerie feeling that something just skipped, like reality blinked, and for a split second you weren't where you thought you were? Maybe it was a clock that jumped forward without explanation, a conversation you swear you've had before, an object that disappears only to show up in the exact place you looked 5 times. Maybe someone said something that made you stop in your tracks, not because of what they said, but because it echoed a truth you hadn't even told yourself yet. You're not crazy, and you're definitely not alone. We've been conditioned to dismiss these moments, to label them as lapses in memory, tricks of the mind, just coincidences. We've been trained to brush them off because that's what the system wants, for you to stay asleep. For you to stay in the version of reality that can be explained, controlled, and repeated. But what if these aren't errors? What if they're signals? What if reality is glitching because you're about to shift? No, not in some sci-fi fantasy way, but in the deeply real, vibrational, soul-level way that science is just beginning to understand. Quantum physics has already cracked open the door, showing us that the act of observing changes what's being observed. That the universe doesn't exist in a fixed state until we look at it. That possibilities collapse into matter through awareness. You are the observer, and your awareness is shaking the very threads of your timeline. Think of it like this: you're tuning an old radio. As the dial turns, static crackles, fragments of other stations bleed through. It's chaotic, disjointed, and then, suddenly, clarity. A new station locks in. These strange glitches, they're that static. They're your consciousness shifting frequencies. They're your energy trying to align with a timeline that already exists, one your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Joe Dispenza calls it collapsing the quantum field with intention. Bruce Lipton says your biology responds to belief, shaping your reality with every emotion you hold. The ancient mystics spoke of veils thinning, of moments where the illusion breaks just enough for you to see the truth underneath. So why, knowing all this, do most people still ignore the signs? Because the conditioning is deep, because we've been taught to fear what can't be explained. Because if you admit something strange is happening, you risk not being understood. But here's the real danger. If you keep ignoring the glitches, you might miss your own evolution. You might miss the moment your soul is trying to realign. You might miss the portal you were meant to walk through. And that's why we need to talk about this, deeply, honestly, and without filters. In this video, you're going to learn what these glitches really are, why they happen right before a quantum shift, and how to recognize them as guidance, not accidents. This isn't just theory. You're going to see how these strange occurrences are the universe's way of showing you that change is already underway, and that you're not losing your mind. You're finding your path. So if this topic is pulling at something inside you, if it feels like this message was meant to find you today, subscribe to the channel right now and walk with me into this revelation. Don't let this moment slip through the cracks. Your next reality might just be waiting on the other side of this understanding. Now, let's begin. Why the fabric of reality seems to tear when you're about to shift. There's a moment, often quiet, often subtle, when something around you starts to feel off. Time doesn't flow the same. People repeat things they haven't said yet. You walk into a room and forget why you're there, only to realize later that the moment was trying to realign you. These moments seem random, even meaningless. But what if the most powerful truth was hiding where you never thought to look? When your soul begins to move, reality doesn't stay still. Before a major shift, something unusual tends to happen. Your energy field, your vibrational core, starts to tug at the edges of what no longer fits. And this friction creates glitches, but they're not breakdowns, they're breakthroughs trying to happen. Little ruptures in the illusion of consistency that your mind has clung to for safety. Here's the process. Your consciousness starts resonating with a higher frequency, but your reality, the outer shell of your habits, identities, and perceptions, hasn't caught up yet. So, it stretches. And just like fabric that's been pulled too tight, the threads begin to strain. You'll notice this as sudden déjà vu, time loops, repeated symbols, or moments that don't seem to fit linear logic. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine reality as a tightly sewn quilt. Each stitch represents a version of you, stitched to a timeline, stitched to a choice, stitched to a belief. When a new version of you begins to emerge, one that vibrates differently, the old stitches can't hold. They pull. They warp. Some even snap. That's the glitch. But what's really breaking is the version of you that no longer fits where you're headed. These experiences are deeply personal. For one person, a glitch might show up as seeing the same number sequence every hour for days. For another, it's hearing the same phrase from 3 different people in one afternoon. For someone else, it's a moment of feeling completely disoriented in a place they know well, like reality blinked and they landed a few seconds behind. You've seen it before. You just didn't know how to read it. And now you're remembering. This is your energy pulling you out of repetition. It's the spiritual nervous system signaling, something's shifting. Pay attention. That feeling of something being off, it's actually the most on track you've ever been. You just haven't learned the language of transition yet. But here's the deeper layer. Most people ignore these signs not because they're blind, but because they've been trained to only trust what can be measured, categorized, and proven. The Matrix teaches comfort through certainty. But certainty is often the enemy of expansion. So if reality is starting to tear, it's not breaking, it's opening. And what's opening is the path you're meant to walk. Let's go even deeper now. We'll look at what quantum physics and spiritual science have been saying all along, and why these strange, fragmented moments aren't just energetic noise. They're evidence, real, measurable, consciousness-shifting evidence that your field is reorganizing itself. The science of glitches, what quantum physics hinted all along. If you've ever questioned your own memory after a strange event, you're not alone. And you're not wrong. What you felt wasn't just psychological, it was quantum. Let me explain. In 1801, a physicist named Thomas Young conducted what would become one of the most mind-bending experiments in history, the double-slit experiment. It revealed something shocking. Particles of light acted differently depending on whether or not they were being observed. When no one was looking, light behaved like a wave, full of infinite potential. But when observed, it collapsed into a particle, into one fixed reality. The act of observing changed the outcome. Now imagine this. If your awareness can alter how reality behaves at the smallest levels of existence, what else are you influencing without even realizing it? Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time, that your consciousness is not just a bystander, but the very force collapsing possibilities into form. You don't just see reality, you create it. And those moments that feel like errors, they're not malfunctions, they're adjustments, recalculations, the quantum field trying to respond to your new vibration. Bruce Lipton takes this even further. He proved that your biology isn't fixed by DNA, but is deeply affected by your environment, beliefs, and energy. Your cells are listening to your thoughts. Your brain is listening to your frequency. Everything is vibration. And when your inner vibration changes, the outer world flickers. Let me give you a simple image. Your reality is like software. Your consciousness is the coder. When you update your code, your beliefs, emotions, intentions, the software lags for a moment. It glitches, not because something's broken, but because something's being rewritten. Pause for a moment and take that in, that strange pause in time, that object that disappears and returns, that weird synchronicity that shouldn't make sense. They're updates in real time. The fabric of your life shifting to align with who you are becoming. They may feel like disruptions, but they're actually messages. The universe is whispering, "You're close. Keep going." So what word captures what you're feeling right now? Is it clarity? Is it shift? Is it remembrance? Whatever it is, leave that one word in the comments. Share your frequency. Maybe it's breakthrough. Maybe it's realignment. Maybe it's truth. Whatever arises in your body right now, trust it. That's the word that marks this moment. Now let's explore some of the most common glitches people experience and what they're actually pointing to. Because once you know what to look for, reality becomes a completely different experience. Common glitches that are actually signs of a shift. You felt it. The clock hits 11:11. Again, you laugh it off, but something inside you pauses. You see 222, 444, 555. So often, it feels like they're chasing you. You walk into your room, and something is missing. You look for it. You swear you knew where it was. Hours later, it's there, in plain sight, right where you had looked before. You think, maybe I'm tired, maybe I'm distracted. But deep down, it feels like something more. These aren't coincidences. They're breadcrumbs, vibrational pings from the universe, telling you that your field is shifting, that reality is responding. Let's go even deeper. Repeating numbers are not just angel numbers or cute internet myths. They're signals of pattern recognition from your higher awareness. When your frequency is in motion, your subconscious starts to pick up the language of symmetry. It notices alignments, synchronicities, fractals, things the rational mind usually filters out, and objects that disappear then reappear. That's a break in coherence. Your emotional field is moving through layers of timelines, sometimes faster than your body can register. Your mind is looking in one frequency, the object is now vibrating in another. Until both sync again, it's invisible to your awareness. Pause for a moment. Let that land. Think of it like this. Your soul has already jumped. Your energy has already realigned, but your body, your human vessel, is still catching up. These glitches are the residue of that spiritual leap. Ever been told you've changed? Or maybe someone looks at you and says, "You feel different." That's not just about how you act, that's about how you vibrate. When your energy changes, your presence becomes unfamiliar to people who were attuned to your past self. You've literally become someone they don't recognize vibrationally. It's not just them noticing, it's your shift echoing outward. And then there's that sensation that you're not fully here. You walk through your day feeling half a second out of sync. Sounds are a little too sharp. Time stretches or contracts. You wonder if it's anxiety, but what if it's activation? What if that strangeness is your inner compass rebooting? Let me give you another metaphor. Imagine your soul setting save points, like in a video game. Moments in your life where a different version of you branched off. When you start to align with one of those potential versions, your system remembers. Your cells feel it, and your current self begins to absorb fragments of what you've already lived in another layer of time. These are not hallucinations, they are integrations. But most people never slow down enough to recognize the signs. We're going now even further. We'll uncover the invisible forces that block you from interpreting reality's clues, and why so many people keep missing the signs that were meant for them all along. Mental blocks that prevent you from reading reality's clues. Let's be honest, it's not that the signs aren't there, it's that we were trained not to trust them. From the moment we began to speak, we were told to make sense of the world in only one way, through logic, through reason, through facts that fit into neat little boxes. But life, real life, has never fit in boxes. You've been told to be rational, to be realistic, to not read too much into things. But what if reading into things was your soul's first language? What if your intuition was never wrong, just silenced? We've been programmed to think that everything must be explainable, measurable, repeatable. That if you can't prove it, it must not be real. But you know that's not true. You feel things before they happen. You sense shifts in rooms. You know when something's off, even when no one says a word. Let me give you a truth that's hard to swallow, but deeply liberating once it lands. The Matrix doesn't need to convince you that glitches aren't real. It only needs to convince you that you'll sound crazy if you talk about them. And that's enough to make you go quiet. It's not your fault. This conditioning runs deep. The system survives by making you doubt your own senses. Because if you trusted them fully, if you trusted your emotional intelligence, your inner signals, your flashes of knowing, you'd be unstoppable. But instead, we get trapped in the mind's loop. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I'm being irrational. And just like that, the sign is dismissed. The moment is lost. Here's what's really happening. Your mind has been wired for control. It wants everything to make sense, even when life is not meant to be linear. And when it can't control, it resists, it filters, it denies. So how do we get back to reading the clues? How do we relearn the language of alignment? Here's a simple process, not to fix anything, but to notice. Pause, just pause. Feel. Drop out of your thoughts, even for 5 seconds. Let your body tell you what's happening. Write. Let your hands catch what your mind is too fast to hold. Pause now if you feel called. Breathe. Let your senses speak before your mind translates. Maybe you've already seen something today that didn't make sense, and maybe that's exactly what made it sacred. This is how we begin to shift the lens, not by chasing proof, but by learning how to feel the frequency behind the phenomenon. Now we'll take this even further. You'll discover how these glitches are not just signs, but an actual map. A path you can follow to move from confusion into deep energetic alignment. Glitches as a map, how to follow the clues back to alignment. What if the very things you've been dismissing, the strange, the subtle, the surreal, are actually guiding you home? Every glitch carries a frequency, and every frequency carries a message. The key is learning how to listen with more than just your ears, and read with more than just your eyes. Let me give you an example. That feeling of discomfort when something feels out of place. It's not just anxiety. It's a frequency mismatch. It's your field trying to alert you. This doesn't belong to the version of you you're becoming. On the other hand, that sudden wave of beauty or a moment that gives you chills for no logical reason. That's not a random sensation. It's your alignment speaking. Each glitch, no matter how small, is an invitation to recalibrate. So how do you follow these signs? Here's a process that many modern spiritual practitioners use. It's deceptively simple, yet deeply effective. The Glitch Journal. Think of it as a sacred record, a vibrational diary of the moments when reality blinked. You write them down, not to analyze them, but to honor them. Patterns begin to emerge. Messages reveal themselves over time. You stop doubting and start decoding. Let me give you an example. You notice objects disappearing and reappearing in moments of deep emotional conflict. Or you only see repeating numbers when you're making decisions that scare you, but stretch you. That's not coincidence. That's energetic confirmation. That's your soul guiding you with symbols. Pause for a moment. Breathe. Can you recall a recent glitch that made you stop and question, even for a second? What emotion was surrounding that moment? What thought came just before it? That's your map. Ancient Tibetan monks used to call these moments razgos no vo, tears in the veil, portals of insight that opened briefly to reveal a truth beyond form. They didn't fear them. They revered them. Nowadays, we live in a digital world full of distractions, but your inner technology, your frequency, your intuition, is far more advanced than any algorithm, and it's always trying to course correct you through symbols, through sensations, through strange disruptions that seem meaningless until you remember how to read them. Here's another metaphor. Glitches are like secret doors. They don't stay open for long, but when they do, if you're present, if you're attuned, you get to step through into a deeper layer of your reality, into the version of you that's been waiting. And before seguimos para o próximo bloco, respire. Sinta o quanto você já percorreu nesta jornada até aqui. Sinta o quanto essa nova linguagem começa a fazer sentido no corpo, mais do que na mente. And if you've made it this far, it's already a sign that you're seeing beyond appearances. Thank you for walking with me this far in the video. You've already stepped into a different level of awareness. So if any of this resonated with you, take a moment now and share your experience in the comments. Have you ever lived something that felt like a glitch? Your story might be the reflection someone else is waiting for. And if this feels like home for you, subscribe and become part of our community. We're just getting started. When you're not glitching, you're stagnating. We've been taught to fear disruption, to seek stability, to keep things under control. But what if the absence of glitches was the real red flag? What if too much consistency isn't a sign of peace, but of energetic stagnation? Let me take you deeper. Glitches aren't just random phenomena. They're signs of movement. When your inner world shifts, your outer world can't stay the same. The distortion you feel, that's growth trying to break through a rigid pattern. But when nothing unusual happens for too long, it might mean your energy has stopped evolving. You know the feeling, days blending into each other, no surprises, everything fine, but deep down, you feel numb, flat, disconnected. That's not stability, that's a lull in frequency, and your soul knows it. Let me give you a metaphor. Your vibration is like a river. If it stops flowing, it doesn't stay still. It stagnates, it clouds, it loses oxygen, and eventually it begins to decay. And sometimes we call that comfort. But real alignment doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like aliveness, like expansion, like butterflies in your chest when you know you're on the edge of something new. Glitches, strange as they seem, are confirmation that you're in motion, that your timeline is adjusting to hold more of who you truly are. Let me give you a practical lens. When was the last time something happened that made you question reality, even for a moment? A déjà vu so sharp it almost hurt. A stranger saying the exact thing you were thinking, a memory you can't place but can feel. Those moments are not bugs in the system. They are signs that the system is responding to your shift. But when days pass with no flicker, no anomaly, no stir in your field, it might be time to invite disruption. That doesn't mean chaos. It means movement. And you don't need to move mountains. Sometimes micro shifts are enough. Change the way you walk into a room. Speak a truth you've been swallowing. Say yes to something that scares you just enough to make your energy pulse again. But here's what really keeps most people stuck. Attachment to the known. You stay in familiar jobs, relationships, identities, not because they feel good, but because they feel safe. And in that safety you shrink, and then you wonder why nothing's glitching anymore. Pause now, breathe, feel into your current life. Does it move you? Or are you walking through a well-rehearsed script? We're about to go even deeper. You'll discover how your intentions, the quiet energies you carry, are deeply connected to the so-called errors in your reality. Because what you intend creates tension, and that tension, it either manifests or distorts. The hidden link between your intentions and reality errors. Intention is not a thought. It's not a goal. It's not a wish you make at midnight under a full moon. Intention is pressure, it's vibrational momentum, it's energy in motion before it becomes matter. And here's the part most people miss: when that pressure builds without alignment, something begins to bend. Think of it like steam building in a closed pipe. If the outlet is blocked, the pressure doesn't just disappear, it escapes in unexpected ways. It seeps through the cracks, it distorts the structure, it creates glitches. And your life, your external experience, is that structure. Every time you set a powerful intention, your field begins to shift. But if your inner state, your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, are not coherent with that intention, the energy begins to misfire. And that misfiring is what you often perceive as a glitch. Not because something is wrong, but because something is unresolved. Let's bring this into the body. You want change, you say it, you think it, but deep down, there's fear, doubt, residual pain from the last time you tried. That emotional residue is information. Your energy is split, one foot on the gas, the other on the brake, and reality reflects that fragmentation. Joe Dispenza speaks often about the power of coherent intention, that when your heart and mind are in agreement, the quantum field has no choice but to respond. But when they're not, reality doesn't know where to go. It glitches because you're sending mixed signals. Bruce Lipton's work echoes this as well. He shows us how the body doesn't just react to our environment, it reacts to what we believe about our environment. And what we believe isn't always conscious. The subconscious holds the reins, and it's in that hidden space where most distortions begin. So how do you bring coherence back? Start with your breath. Breath is the language of energy. It tells your body what to feel. It tells your field what to expect. Here's a process you can try, not as a trick, but as a tune-up. Breathe in slowly, not to control, but to listen. Feel your heartbeat, not to count, but to connect. As you breathe, hold one image in your mind, not just what you want, but how it feels to already have shifted. Maybe it's peace, maybe it's relief, maybe it's power, not forceful, but quiet, grounded, real. Now breathe that feeling into your chest. Let it spread through your ribs, into your arms, into your fingers. Let your body memorize what aligned intention feels like. Then visualize, not just with your eyes closed, but with your cells. Imagine the version of you where there's no more split, no contradiction between what you want and what you believe. That version already exists. Your job is not to force it, but to match it. When your energy becomes a signal instead of a conflict, the glitches start making sense. They're no longer messy interruptions, they're confirmations. So the next time reality wobbles, pause, feel. Andre, where am I split? And then bring yourself home to coherence. Reality is glitching because you're evolving. You've made it this far, and maybe now you're seeing everything differently. All those moments you used to dismiss, the flickers, the repetitions, the eerie timing of events, they weren't just strange, they were sacred. Reality isn't falling apart, it's opening up, because you are. Let that land. The more your vibration expands, the less compatible you become with the old structures that used to hold you, and so they start to break. Time bends. Familiar things become unfamiliar. New truths begin to surface in ordinary places. And glitches, those little disruptions, are not signs that something is wrong. They are signs that something new is trying to anchor. Something wiser, something deeper, something more aligned with who you've always been beneath the layers. You're not going crazy, you're just waking up, and waking up doesn't always look like bliss. Sometimes it looks like confusion, like discomfort, like the ground shifting under your feet with no warning. But here's what you need to remember. If you're glitching, it means you're not stagnant. If things don't make sense, it means the old logic no longer applies. And if you're questioning everything, Maybe that's because you're finally starting to listen to the one thing that always knew, your soul. So what now? Observe, document, honor. Let your awareness become your compass. Let the glitches guide you, not to fear, but to alignment. Trust what stirs your energy. Follow what moves your heart. And let your presence become the most stable thing in a reality that is always reshaping itself around your truth. And if you're still here, thank you. Thank you for your presence, for your energy, and for choosing to walk this path of remembrance. You didn't just watch this video, you walked through a portal with me, a vibrational shift you might not fully see yet, but you'll feel it in the days to come. So tell me, did this message resonate with you? If it did, comment below, let me know. Drop a like and subscribe to join this space of truth, presence, and deep exploration. And most of all, don't stop here. Keep walking. Keep remembering, there's a next video waiting for you on the channel, one that goes even deeper into what you're experiencing right now. Go watch it. Your soul brought you here for a reason. And always remember, the reality begins where your old pattern ends.